and Harden's relationship did not factor into a trade, saying, quote, that would not have driven us to something we otherwise wouldn't have done. Clinton, you buying that?
No, I'm not buying it because it doesn't make sense on either level. Number one, two players not getting along, perfectly good reason to trade one of them. That's what I don't understand why nobody's willing to admit this year. If you can get something and one of your guys says, hey, I can't play with this guy, get rid of one of the guys so that your team can actually play. Number two, when you throw in the draft compensation, I'm not sure how much better the Rockets have gotten. I mean, I just don't know that that's provable. And so if you think about what it all adds up to, coming back to the relationship to me isn't some huge knock on anybody. It's just a reality of what happened. And no, therefore, I don't believe it shouldn't be a factor because it should have been a factor either way.
Yeah, I'm at to borrow Nick's BS detector on that.
Right.
I'm like, what are we talking about? Of course it's a factor. And the idea of, okay, maybe the fit isn't there game-wise, but if it's more of a fit personality-wise, NBA season's a slog. You're around these guys more than you're around your family, more than you're around your friends. If there's a personality conflict, it poisons that locker room. So if they at least have two talented guys who want to work together, that's a better start than they had at the end of last year with Chris Paul.
And let me pose this. If they don't make this trade, how long before James Harden says, I'm out?
Right.
I mean, that's your risk. If you don't make this trade.
You have no loyalty to Chris Paul anymore. He's not good enough. That is the reality, truly. Chris Paul is not good enough to warrant putting down any kind of layers to making him happy. Tim had a great story about it. Our pal Vinny Goodwill did as well in the last few weeks. There was a bad relationship. And almost always, guys, as we know in the league, where there's smoke with this stuff, there's usually fire. Yeah. When that stuff starts coming out, it's like, it's pretty bad. So this was the move. And Ramona, it speaks exactly what you if you're the Rockets, you can't mess with James Harden. He's your guy. He is the franchise. Chris Paul, he was a nice piece. You didn't win. Time to go.
They were trying to make this work, though, before the Russell Westbrook thing came up, which no one expected. I spoke to a Rocket source in Vegas, and he said he was reading the Jordan rules to say, people had problems before and figured it out. And now he plans to read David Halberson's breaks of the game about the Blazers back in the 70s for the same reason, as a reassurance that it can be so crazy, but you can still win.
Okay, so they trade for Russell Westbrook. That's their big move. But before that, they were talking about trading Clint Capella, P.J. Tucker, Eric Gordon. And from what I can tell you, those are off the table now. My understanding from a source close to the Rockets that all those trades that were discussed before the Jimmy Butler free agency are now off the table. They're rolling with this group. Are they good enough to contend now?
I think they are simply because of the way the rest of the West has developed. I mean, if you think about what is up in the air with the Warriors, I mean, the Blazers got there, but we don't really know what's going on. The Nuggets look good. I mean, there's no reason for me to believe if you're thinking, let's just say you're going to consider Westbrook for Paul 1-for-1. If they didn't get rid of all the other players that were their key cogs, then yeah, they're right there. I thought 2 years ago this team was going to win the title, and they didn't. It didn't happen. But they're not appreciably better or worse, and everybody else kind of don't really know what's going on.
There's probably 5 or 6 teams I would name before them, but then they'd be in that next group. And yeah, sure. I mean, if it does work out, there's talent there, there's playoff experience there. I believe in Mike D'Antoni as a coach. I know some don't. I would say, couple things break their way. You could be in the Western Conference Finals. You get to the Western Conference Finals, a turned ankle or something like that could turn the series.
That roster was one Chris Paul hamstring away from beating the Warriors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now you replaced Chris Paul with Russell Westbrook, who's had his fair share of health issues, but is a lot younger and a little more spring in those legs.
The Rockets feel a lot to me this year like the Lakers. They better win right now because Westbrook's contract is so awful moving forward. This is the time. You've got all the other pieces in place. If they don't do it next year, just like with the Lakers, you go, because I don't think they're going to be able to do it.
Clinton, we're trading you for a future first and a pick swap next.
Not worth that much, guys.
Yeah, no. Future first.
There's no.
Top 14 protected?
Maybe. Okay.
All right.
I'll live with that.
All right. Here's what The Jump recommends for today. Plus, a new ESPN